Uh, hello. Sorry.
Hello.
You guys are welcome again today. Okay. So we are going to go straight into the discussion of the day. So with me, I have Dr. Wale Oni and Bode Fashakin. So we hope to really engage in uh, let me say, very um, serious discussion today surrounding the subject of leadership response and the COVID-19 virus or the COVID-19 outbreak in Nigeria. So, guys, you are welcome. Huh?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Good to be
You.
here.
All right. It's good to have you guys around again today. So, but I'm going to start with something that is, a very breaking news that occurred, or let me say, let's assume that it is really a very breaking, kind of something that's a new event, unlike what some people have been insinuating that perhaps the disease actually passed on many days prior. What do you feel today? What's your assessment of the whole thing today in relation to what we are discussing now, Dr. Wale?
Yeah, I think it's one of the issues we should discuss, given the fact that in the absence of proper narrative, in the absence of proper information, people will try as much as possible to fill the void.
Okay.
Nature abhors vacuum, and that has always been, the reaction from the Nigerian state. I don't know where they are copying this style from, where you need to hold information from the general public, where you need to keep them, uninformed about the happenings. I don't see, the secrecy in opening up, information about governance and people around government. You don't have need to disclose the health situation or give private information about whoever is but if you're in public if you are a public office holder,
Okay.
uh you can't hide behind things. All you try to hide is the information flow in the polity. So, given the event of the past 3 weeks, having when we learned about the situation with chief of staff to the president,
Hmm.
uh, we expect constant update on his whereabouts, his health situation, and
Okay.
things like that. Could have even granted some sympathetic comments and things like from Nigeria, but when you whisk people away and then you put them in isolation and no, especially when they are public office holders, and you give room for to speculations and all sorts of rumors. So here we are,
Okay.
somebody in that height died, and then of course we are getting mixed feelings about Nigerians. It's not good enough.
Yeah. But what's your opinion, really?
Well, I think that every death of man diminishes all of us as human beings. So the first thing is to give condolence and all of that to the immediate family and
Hmm.
of course the presidency.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think it's inevitable that all of us at one point or the other will experience this. And that makes one think that it is important that all of us, while we are here on earth, do the best for humanity. Because we will not be remembered for the number of cars or houses or money that we have,
Hmm.
but we'll be remembered for the number of lives that we touched. And since this
Like,
has happened, since the news has broken out, it can one can liken it to the death of a former maximum ruler of Nigeria, where people believe that the death is to the benefit of an average Nigerian. So, I mean, as bad as it is, and as no one is
Hmm.
immune from this sort of thing, I think that it is important that as human beings we try our best and realize that when we have access to position, to power, to resources and all of that, that all of that are used for the benefit of people, around us. And
Exactly.
I think that speaks directly to what Dr. Oni has been talking about in terms of how uh, the presidency, or if you like, people in power, should always carry themselves. You are not in power to be able to flaunt it or that or all of that, or you are not in government to be able to show that you are government and right of other people. You are in government to the whole essence of government is about service.
Okay.
The whole essence of the state is about creating institutions that can service people, support people, create structures and all of that. So when that is lost, which can be lost through lack of information, for example, when that's lost, then you have lost the essence of government,
Mm.
and what you have left is something else that is not what government is supposed to be about.
Yeah,
So that's my immediate
yeah,
reaction.
okay. That immediate response is really apt here, but there is something
Yeah.
that is very important that we have to also bear in mind, and that is the fact that all these, all what we're experiencing now, the whole scenarios, they are happening around the corona outbreak. In fact, there was this particular article I saw in Punch newspaper, so I wish I could maybe at some point I would project that on my screen for everyone to see, wherein it was reported, a couple of weeks ago, that the reason why there were no infrastructure was due to like the procurement bottlenecks put in place by the former COS, that's Chief of Staff Bakari, in purchasing lab equipment, that he moved everything for earth research, every purchase and everything to the Ministry of Agri, and it was insinuated there that he cared less. But now it was never envisaged that will arise where he or any of those powerful people, individuals, will really get to a point where they will not be able to travel out of the country for treatment. And we saw a very embarrassing thing that happened during, I think, at the point that it was reported that he fell ill. When they had to take him to some hospital in Guagualada, it was reported that they had to fly him. Somebody who has, with that kind of immense power and closeness to the president, a sort of proxy president, with no access in a federal capital territory like Abuja, they had to fly him to Lagos, and they couldn't even disclose the place where he was flown to. So it's really the thing is, I see it as more complicated than just a mere condolence or a mere some people celebrating or celebratory event celebrating his death. Granted, we are going to die. That's my own. This thing. I know we are going to die. Nobody's going to at least for now, nobody's getting out of this world alive. But at the same time, our traditional way or approach of not speaking ill of the dead, not criticizing people whether they're alive or dead, especially those who are in authority, will not really serve the purpose very well this time. So I
Yeah.
want us to again that's what we have discussed so far, like the leadership response so far. Let's analyze and assess the leadership response in Nigeria from the point of view of let's say let's say both the federal and the states or some of the agencies. So what are your opinion, Wale Oni? What are your opinion about that? About all the
Ah,
response so far from political leadership across the country?
I think it's been of condolences. I've gone through Twitter this morning, and right till about 3 a.m. when I started, receiving information about the demise of the COS on my news feed. So I try as much as possible to go around them, but it's but where you see some, it's you feel so somewhere it's euphoric, and then I would they say it cuts across the three spheres of human feeling, both sympathy, apathy, and empathy. I've seen three being reflected in some of the comments of people on Twitter, importantly on Facebook. I've read about people being sympathetic. I've read about them being apathetic, to the news, and I've also had witnessed people writing. They are also moved to the fact that they don't know this person directly. That's just to show the human nature. But one thing quickly comes to mind in that nature. When you see, Nigerians, an average Nigerian trying to, be sympathetic
Okay.
or empathetic in that kind of situation, they transpose themselves into the shoes of, the victim, and try to, see how that could be, how they could interpret that from their own perspective. And then it's like you have your father in that kind of situation, and then you suddenly lose it. Then you are the son or the daughter. You want to feel that you have lost out in the largesse. I could see some people reacting in that kind of situation from that point of view. Not really because they want to be objective, but just because they feel were he to be them, and then this happened to them. This is a clear example of how they could feel, losing out in the power corridor. Where given the fact that their direct line is long gone. So I think that's just sums it up.
Yes. So, Bode, what's your thought? What are your thoughts?
In terms of leadership response to the COVID issue,
Yes.
yeah, so I think that basically, first, we have to acknowledge that as far as Nigeria is concerned,
Okay.
there is a vacuum in leadership. I think that is the first thing, which means that once there is a vacuum, there is no how that the vacuum can respond to a crisis. So, and it manifested when, in the first instance, some that know, for example, analysts, media personalities, health workers, and so on, recommended that the government should put in place measures to prevent people from entering the country. The government didn't do that until later. Some reported that it was because people that have access to the powers in Nigeria had to, they needed time to travel back to Nigeria and so on and so forth. So the leadership vacuum showed that the decisive step that needed to be taken to prevent things from boomeranging was not taken. And it was taken, it was too little, it was too late. It was too little because the agencies that needed resources to address this looming crisis didn't have that sort of resources. So it took some time before everybody was scampering, running, on each other before they were able to get their acts together to decide what to do. Even at that, it's as if without any form of disregard to all the activities and labor of the National Center for Disease Control, and the so-called committee that was put in place, without any disregard to all that they have put in. I think that if some of those steps were taken a bit earlier, it could have saved us some of these things. However, at the state level, that is below the federal level, I think that commendation has been pouring in on the governor of Lagos, who has taken steps to ensure that some of these things are checked and controlled. And I think the ability, which of course speaks to how much competence that goes into appointments of people into position. If you take the commissioner of health or the commissioner for health, for example, you will see that that is a person that is competent to do the job. And that has spoken well in terms of his ability to deliver. You will see that as much as the governor is on the front line, that commissioner is also on the front line working, hand in hand to ensure that they respond to this situation. So I am not sure if one can say the same thing at the federal level, which again speaks to leadership response at that level. But at the Lagos state level, you see, the level of commitment, you see the level of, expertise, you see the level of action
Okay.
that are taken. All of these things are required
Yeah,
to, capture
we must not
this sort of
we must
thing.
not also forget the fact that some people have said that Lagos have always been a kind of progressive state, though I have my own
Yeah,
reservation
yeah.
about
You
that.
see, the truth is, Lagos is a progressive state. Of course, not because there are no things that retrogress the state. We all
Yes,
know some of
yes,
those factors,
yeah,
but you will still see that there are some form of commitment to bring the best, into play. Every once in a while, and that has always served, the interest of Lagos, and it cannot but be so because there is so much in Lagos that you cannot afford to be careless.
yes,
If things go out of hand in Lagos, I mean, you're talking about more than 20 million people.
yes,
Things can change so fast and things can get very bad so fast.
yeah.
So that naturally,
Mm.
I think, makes Lagos to stand out in terms of course, it's a place where people have opportunity, many people are there, many talents are there, and so on and so forth. And then they try as much as possible to bring some of them on board because, not doing so can be more dangerous than, doing so.
Yes, yes. I agree with you, somehow. But there's also another angle to it, and that's the fact that what we are experiencing now is a sort of leadership emergence at different levels. Okay,
Mm.
when you
Yeah.
see how people have already taken charge in, I mean,
Yeah.
how they because initially the government was very lackadaisical about the whole thing, and I think
Mm.
Wale only mentioned something like that the other time,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it took some time for us to even know, and then at some point they had to like shut down the airport. Nobody like we didn't really know. I mean, they didn't shut down the airport on time because there were insinuations that they were
Mhm.
waiting for some of their people to return. And again, we have also seen that there were a level of different, I mean, different levels of confusion. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, going on. It took, in fact, much pressure, almost like a popular blackmail, to even get the
Mm.
federal government to respond on time.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
Professor Wole Soyinka had to be insulted by one of the aides to the president when he
Yeah.
suggested that the government was not really being proactive. So
Yeah.
we saw
Exactly.
that they were a little bit defensive. They wished that the whole thing would just go away, that
Mm.
the whole thing would just fizzle out like the way I mean, the usual way that we just pray it off, it will go off. That was
Mhm.
why initially a lot of religious leaders, a lot of I don't want to use certain heavy valued words, but a lot of leaders who are what I can call imposters had to emerge, both from the media,
Mm.
from I mean non-political actors really, but even across, I mean, across board, people emerged to fill in the blanks, and then there were a little bit of confusion with some saying, "Oh, it's the
Yeah.
devil's." Something. Some people were even blaming. Some people were even blaming several other factors, 5G or there. I mean, any other foreign things they could lay hands upon, and even we could see the NCDC confusion even at that, because at some
Mm.
point when Donald Trump tweeted that hydrochloric acid or whatever, I said hydrochloric acid, chloroquine rather,
Chloroquine.
that chloroquine, prescribed chloroquine as a cure for that, as a cure for coronavirus infection.
Yeah.
The following day,
Yeah.
or I think few hours later, NCDC came out to say, oh yeah, they packaged it as if it was their own findings. A lot of people got that message, and some people died, according to the news report, taking chloroquine. And as soon as
Yeah.
the Center for Disease Control in the US came out with another position to say that no, we have not really authorized that. That's the opinion of the president. They also came out to retract that statement again. So you consider a level of confusion in that. I mean, from the federal level. I mean, from that
Yeah.
federal agency. But by and large,
Yeah.
Dr.
Yeah.
Oni, what can you say? I mean, your assessment so far generally. We've discussed the
Yeah.
state and what the state and other. I mean, the state, both federal and the state, federating state response so far. So from the media
Yeah.
aspect, from media, and then from the leaders follower, we are looking at leadership now. I think we should also look
Mm.
at the media as leadership in relation to even the citizens as followers now. What are your
Yeah.
assessment of the way the followers have conceived some of those information flow? I mean, I don't want to use the word contradictory because I'll be imposing my own interpretation to it. So, what can you say
Yeah.
to that?
Oh, yes. There is no way we can remove the role of the media, especially the news media, from the leadership and the construction of governance in a particular country. But one thing that continues to amaze me is the fact that the Nigerian media, especially the journalism arm, have not been up to the task, especially in the leadership of the NUJ. So to say, given the fact that the role they played in during the 5G coronavirus situation, trying to advise the government against it, clearly in an area where they have no expertise.
Okay.
It's alarming, and it's just just a keyhole to observe what the situation that we are, in Nigeria, especially in the news sector. Media exists, to as a place, as a way only, be informed adequately, because they are expected to give unbiased, at least near objective report of the situation. But in a situation whereby you have the media of a particular country also being in the realm of misinformation, and they are public of fake news in itself, that portends a lot of danger. So in the past few days, there have been positions, the reports that I've noticed on Nigerian Tribune, for instance, writing about events that are not, clearly objective and not even, true. And when they take into the tweet space or perhaps online to gather their news, they are also very fastidious in going to the press, not doing the due diligence to what they have to have done. Journalism is, if you are in it's alarming how they have constructed some foreign media as they have to make of information, and they also like and sinker to information that diffuse into our space without filtering them. Alarming, and it's
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, like, we need to really address some of these issues, really, and it's something that we have to, at some point, maybe take serious as a country, because when you see the way some of the media houses, I mean, there's a way, if you really follow the whole narrative surrounding the whole COVID-19 reportage and everything that they've been passing across, you could see a kind of what I can call a kind of dirt in the level of scientific education, rather, and also the lack of, let me not say the lack of, let me say kind of amateurish approach to reporting news, even to journalism, where you see people reflecting their own personal bias or impose. You could even clearly see, if was to say that they are no longer a kind of. I think it's also going to be very debatable, which, I mean, to what level or to what extent a journalist can be said to be truly objective. But at some point, the journalism as a whole must portray that level of objectivity. But we could not separate even the journalists from a politician. Some of them turn themselves to opposition party. Some of them are not even too different from ethnic jingoists. Some of them, even at some point, one of the chairman of editor had to call a whole tribe names, in the paper, and nothing was done about that. So we could see that level of unprofessionalism being displayed. But by and large, we can say that they've really let me say, in terms of democracy, defending standing with the masses, to some point we can score them a little bit high in that regard. But in terms of information dissemination, information management, or crisis communication, that leadership there, we have not really witnessed that, because a lot of people have to rely on reportage from CNN, from Al Jazeera, from foreign organizations. In fact, those sources are more trusted than even the local news media. If at some point you even see news media repeating some of those things, I mean, some of the information or data presented by these other foreign media sources. So that's to show the level of, my own personal assessment about that. And I want to look at the role of security as lead. I mean, let's say security leadership now. Bode, being somebody who is whose areas, your area of influence, is around that subject. That security leadership aspect. We've seen videos of military police beating civilians or even extorting them. So have they really? What's your assessment of that level of response in terms of security? We have talked about the media and their roles, and then we have looked at the federal and the state. But now let's look at the security as an arm of government. Have they really been doing it? I mean, we've seen some. I want you to really provide a kind of your position on that. What's your assessment? Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Security agency that we have in Nigeria.
Okay.
And we must understand that for many of these security agencies, they do not do these things on their own. Even though at this time, government is trying to dissociate itself from some of the brutalities, I think it is inherent in the Nigerian state to use the security agencies to, oppress, repress the people. And it is quite unfortunate because the idea is that the essence of this agency, or these agencies as the case may be, is actually to do the opposite, which is to protect, people, protect their lives and all of that. But we have found out that
Okay.
in Nigeria, and this is not new anyway, that in Nigeria, the police, the military, all other security agencies, once they put on that uniform, they become monster. Of
Okay.
course, what they all go out to defend is the regime. So anyone that falls outside of the remit of
Mm.
that regime becomes the enemy of it.
Mm.
So if you're a revolutionary, for example, if you're an agitator, if you are just anyone that is found flouting an order that is not even located in the constitution,
Okay.
you will be dealt with frontally and brutally too. So this is the crisis that we have at hand. And the idea that security is even limited to protection of lives and property is also in itself problematic. I mean, we see how people are beginning to protest. Now, why are people going out and why are they flouting order?
Okay.
Basically because they need to feed. They need to find things to meet their daily needs. That is essentially a security issue.
Yes.
Exactly.
Lock somebody up and I mean, somebody that depends on the hours of riding a motorcycle in a day to be able to take care of, to fend for his family, and
Okay.
you take that away from him, and there is no palliative, no provision, no relief material, and you
Yeah.
expect him to die of hunger rather than coronavirus. He would rather choose to go die on the street than wait and sit at home and die of hunger. So all of these things are part of the problem. And then I think the point that is most central in all of this is that chicken has come home to roost.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
things that we have left undone, have come back to
That's
haunt us.
us. Yes.
And this is the problem. You see, you have not taken care of these people for a long time, and no one envisaged that this is going to happen. That it will happen that a health issue, a pandemic, will hit the world. The so-called elite will not be able to escape from it. I mean,
escape.
look at what
Yeah.
happened to the chief of staff, for example. He just passed away. It could happen to anyone, and anyone could just die as a result of this. So we have not
Exactly.
even seen, the height of it in Nigeria yet, because what we are saying now is just like a preface to a much more serious issue that is likely to happen. So what am I saying? I'm saying the security issues that
Yeah.
is broad and
Okay.
all encompassing has not been given due attention. For most of those security agents that are, abusing their power, they also see it as a measure of enhancing their own security.
Yes.
Exactly.
Unfortunately so. Rather than understand that we are all in this mess together and appeal to people's conscience, which is a normal thing to do in a sane climate. Many people say Nigeria is not the same climate anyway. so that is the thing. Rather than think about all of that, and it tells you also that government itself is not thinking clearly about security as it should.
Exactly.
If government thinks about security as it should, then it will begin to recalibrate most of this. A lot needs to be done. I don't know how we are going to do it, but a lot needs to be done to attend to all of these things. People are going to be dying in the coming weeks, most likely, of hunger, of the virus, and then people are going to be choosing between dying of one of the two. And that is going to be the case. Those that think that they have the wealth are no longer going to, in fact, it's already becoming clear. Children of wealthy people are already distributing relief materials. Can you imagine? If you told them a month ago that they will do that now, they will say perish the thought. It will never happen. But it's already happening.
Yeah.
Everybody is doing giveaway. If you go on social media, if you go on Instagram, everybody is giving 5,000, 10,000. That's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And everything that is being done is just a scratch of the real thing. The reports say Nigeria has 80 million people below poverty line. The federal government cannot even take care of 2 million.
Yeah.
You can imagine. So that's a huge, huge problem. So the security agencies have not, been trained. In fact, it is not even the job of the military, for example, to manage population when there is something like this. To even imagine that. It's not their duty.
Yeah.
At worst, the police can invite civil defense and so on to support them, road safety to support them. I mean, that's the best that can go. But now invite military into civilian space to stop people from moving when we are not at war. That's even a mismatch, a misplacement of priorities.
Yeah. I think tied to that. Sorry for cutting that. Tied to that. If tied to that, if you look at the way, a kind of paternalistic way, the media and not the media now, sorry, the security agencies, and then the government in cahoots with the government, how they've been viewing and the way they've been framing some of their narratives concerning this, like the lockdown or what have you. You could see a kind of there's a kind of disconnect between the leadership, the security leadership, the political leadership, and the people. So they are treating the people as kind of unresponsive or a kind of passive, let me say, a kind of passive observer, not necessarily taking them into account. I mean, if you look at the way they've, for instance, we saw a lot of videos of people of government officials like terrorizing, let me use that word, terrorizing now, or oppressing the people, arresting them. In fact, there was a report, I think by the human rights, one of these human rights organizations, that the security agents killed more Nigerians than the coronavirus. The fatality from so you can see that. So people are more like, so it's another opportunity to really bring out that bestial nature in some of these elements, who have also, if you look at the level of recruitment now, talking about the securitization of Nigerian state now, when you look at the way they are recruited, some of these elements are either like political angers on. These are people who have, maybe they were part of those who rigged elections. They were, because you can even get into some of the police or secret services or some of the other security agencies. You need a kind of letter from a senator or from one of the big politicians in your area. So that means that most of those people are not really professionals in the real sense of the word. So they see this avenue as a way to exact people. Even so, you see hapless citizens being taken to like an ATM machine to withdraw money as bribe for police officers. We've seen the video. So that is that we cannot really, and again, we cannot also take leadership from the citizenry. Over the years, the psyche of the people have been have been bastardized through different regimes, like long military rule. So many of them also expect some of this behavior from these leaders. And when you expect certain behavior, you somehow reinforce the behavior, and in a way, a lot of people would start. Some of these people will start repeating that, reenacting that
Yeah.
bestial
Exactly.
attitude. So
Yeah.
when you lock
Exactly.
people up
Yeah.
without any
Yeah.
palliative, you ask the
Yeah.
markets not to
It's
open.
constant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you ask market not to open. You lock down
Yeah.
you lock down the public in this country where more than 70 or 80%. I don't have the statistics right now, so
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
really speaking from authority here.
Informal sector. Yes.
Informal sector. How do you expect them to cope when they have to, like, some of them are Okada riders, they are taxi riders, they earn their daily wage earners. So how do you
Yeah.
expect them to cope in this situation without any palliative? And then you came up at the same time with another what do you call it, another policy that if you have 100 naira, if you have recharged your phone with 100 naira, or you have 5,000 about 5,000 naira in
In
your
your
account,
Mm.
then you're a rich man.
you,
Sorry, you are not
you
poor. So so you are not poor. So Dr. Oni, what can you say? Because the whole thing is very perplexing, really, because I've not really been able to gather myself together ever since I saw certain
yeah.
videos of people being oppressed and beaten by the by agents of the Nigerian state. So what can you
Yeah.
say to that? What's your opinion? Maybe perhaps you might be able to help us to really make sense of it all.
I think I share your sentiment. I'm in your space, and within your interpretation regarding that bestial act from the Nigerian security arms.
Okay.
They are fond of oppressing the people, and I want to believe that is how they have constructed the agency so far. And it's pathetic the way they handle the Nigerian citizens, and perhaps when we is it not from the same taxpayers' money that these organizations are being funded? But if you look typically into the economics of the Nigerian state, you want to say what amount of taxpayer goes into funding some of those agencies. So because of that indirect nature, that they don't find it very real to really interpret how they are being managed. So they tend to exhibit that power and then use it to rub the Nigerian people on the face. It's not something that is dignifying. It's not something that should be encouraged. And I want to believe the Nigerian state has grown to that status, as the giant of Africa, so to say, to start addressing some of these things that are taking the shine off the government. We need to start a branding regime that could put us out there and sell our own, project a very good identity about ourselves. Some of the things we post on YouTube or perhaps are put on Facebook and are not so, they are not so,
Yeah. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. A lady.
kind of a very big news. I think that's mark of the in time to the history of camera phones, justice in Nigeria.
Okay.
That would be a very fundamental case to always talk about. It was a kind of experience that we started witnessing. People being enough, trying to use their phone to take, and that's what has grown. And the Nigerian has not actually grown along that to see how they could use that opportunity to rebrand the country, use that opportunity also to provide digital literacy. So but I think at this point we need to start these conversations and address this issue, as least as possible.
Yeah.
If I add to that,
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to come in to say that if you look at the nature of the security agencies in Nigeria, you will know that that security agency can never ever do anything contrary to what it has been doing. You
Okay.
know,
Mm.
it is just by the circumstance of the now that we see that they abuse people. And of course, because we now have phones that have recording applications and all of that, as we see all of this. But these things are not new.
Okay.
Now, you can trace this to the colonial regime that brutalized the colonial people and didn't even see them as citizens and treat them badly and so on and so forth. You can link that up with years of military rule that does not give a damn about people. But you
Okay.
can also look at political economy of the training around these officers,
Okay.
which, as I said earlier, you see a security arrangement that
Mm.
caters to the security of the ruling elite, the
Okay.
regime,
Okay.
but doesn't care a bit about the people. Now, maybe we can just take a look or take a visit or a trip to the training schools of the police. Then you will see the amount of rocks that these guys go through when acquiring their training. In fact, of course, again, while it is important to mention that some of these officers, which are very few and far in between, are fine officers, fine, security agents, preponderant, overwhelming majority of them are not. And it's as a
Mm.
result of that kind of training that they get, the food they get, the support system that they get, even the insurance.
Mm.
As we speak, they sort of make up for all these things by brutalizing their fellow citizens and exploiting them, extorting money from them.
Yeah.
So, as this lockdown order is, some of the things that we hear is that people extort people and allow them right of passage because they are able to extort them. And extorting money from people didn't start now. It has
Mm.
always been with us. And
Mm.
it will continue to be if nothing radical is done to change this. Now, that takes me to another point. That is that a lot needs to be done to build a broken country like Nigeria. People will not admit that the country is actually broken. It is
Mm.
completely broken. And
Mm.
you need leaders that are ready to roll their sleeves and do the dirty job because it's actually a huge thing to fix a country like that. It is not what you sit in, office and enjoy all the benefits that come with it to fix. You must be ready to lose some of the privilege. You must be ready to step on some powerful tools. You must be
Yeah.
ready to do things that are completely radical. If you are not ready to do all of that, you will continue to have the same thing. And as I said earlier, chicken has come home to roast. Those things that we didn't do are now haunting us.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
Yeah. If I may, there is something that I would want you guys to, I mean, I want us to really look at very well. And that's the fact that what is the implication of all this post COVID-19 now? What's the implication? What are the implications of some of this leadership irresponsibility? Let me put it that way, because there are lots of gaps now. In fact, at some point people had to beg the president to shout at the president to even respond. To even we have seen various leaders across the world coming out, even those who have been docile, emerging powerfully to take lead, to demonstrate leadership, and then to see how, I mean, they've been demonstrating leadership in various aspects. And at some point, I think it was Wale O'Neill shared something with me yesterday. Like we've seen some female leaders exhibiting leadership, and some of the people have been I mean, demonstrating effective leadership in this coronavirus. The pandemic, the global pandemic now. So, but in Nigeria, we've not really we've seen that as some pockets of leadership in various states by various individuals emerging as leaders as the situation dictates, but we've not really seen like the nation as a whole, a galvanizing force in the nation as a whole. We've seen sectionalism. If I think, I don't know if I don't have the map here now, but I would have loved to project it on the screen. And that's a map of even the sharing formula of the palliative. We've had a situation whereby we are trying to build a united nation, a country of people who will feel like, okay, they are part of this country. And then we've seen situation where some people from certain part of the country in charge of distributing palliative thought it wise to divert palliative that should be meant for places that were shut down, places like Lagos, that should even get almost all the resources of the country because of the mortality rate, the outbreak, the everything. No, it got zero. And then places like Nasarawa and some other places up north even got more than, if you look at ratio of north to south, it was almost 80% to 20%. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm going to parsimonious. And this is not really fair. And we are talking about, and when people talk about this, you start calling their names, start calling them tribalists, and we've seen that. And not only that, even in the way, even before this, so before this coronavirus outbreak, situation whereby some people will just hijack power for their own interest, for their own parochial interest. So I'm looking at it from that point. I want us to examine post coronavirus. What do we envisage? What do you guys envisage as a kind of likely outcomes or consequences of some of these leadership irresponsibility, if I may say, starting with Wale Oni?
Well, we are putting on the seat with the same with the same layers in space.
Okay.
I'm not an oracle, but something that is clear, that I expect. It's the same docility, it's the same, passivity. The Nigerian space is not ripe for anything right. If anything come from that hand, it has to be a radical movement. It has to be something unique. Look at the way we are handling this coronavirus. Unfortunately, it claimed the life of chief of staff. In this kind of environment, what else do you expect? Yoruba has a saying. I don't know how I would be able to put it. That's if you have a death killing your relative, it's actually speaking loudly to your face that it's nearby. So you couldn't put if people as powerful, close, if they couldn't, save or salvage the situation, how much more people in the ordinary, space? Given that experience, and there is nothing to show, that a system is emerging, that a policy guideline is in place, framework is operating. I was going through a Twitter handle of a very prominent Nigerian Twitterati, and then he was trying to look for validate a picture coming from Enugu State about a public hospital in one public hospital in Enugu, and lo and behold, very hard, the dilapidated building. In fact, the signpost of that particular hospital was more impressive than the building. It's nothing to write home about.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Through just maybe 3 years of apprenticeship as dispensers, and then they amass that right and roll. When nature hates vacuum, as we always say,
Yes, yes.
and then with that community, they become the lord of the man of prescribing. People go them and they get akakwe, paracetamol, and then because it worked for them in the long term, they believe that it's effective. In the long run, fight down the line, you start seeing manifestation of self-prescribed and abuse and medical inaccuracies. So
Yes.
people even go to some of these people to do as complicated surgery as abortion and appendicitis. It's quite alarming.
Wow.
Where is government doing all that? So when you don't have a structure, when you don't have a policy addressing some of these situations, how do you expect it to look? It's glooming. We don't know. There is no policy direction. There is no framework.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see any picture in it. It's just pathetic, that I have to be frank.
Yes. Bode, what do you have to say? Sorry, about like what are your thoughts? I know that we are not soothsayers, but as social scientists, we can infer anyway, and also we might not be able to read. We are not prophets, but we can infer from certain historical events or antecedents or what is really happening now to project into the future, the likelihood of certain events repeating itself, because much as nature, much as you cannot predict what will happen tomorrow, but there are observable patterns even in nature. So, what are your thoughts? What do you think would be likely consequences of some of these? Are things going to change? Are we going to witness a new, let me use the word, a new epoch? Is there going to be a kind of reformation or transformation? What do you see?
Well, from experience, I think that in Nigeria, the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Okay.
Exactly.
The thing is that we have to understand that we are in for a long haul with this coronavirus issue. I really fear that in the coming days and weeks, we may actually record thousands of cases in Nigeria. I fear that may be the case. Well, NCDC has said that, and I think anybody that is observing how the trend, around the world, will see that is the case. But post-COVID, assuming that we also, many of us survive, assuming so, I think that people will position themselves to want to grab what's left of the system. And if you look at the tendency of people, especially even now when we are talking about distribution of palliative, it's a signal that people haven't learned anything. People have to allocate resources, to the areas that are most affected, and then they have to allocate to areas that are either of those that are powerful, or their own, or their friend, or their relatives. I mean, it's a powerful signal that people haven't learned. And once the coast is clear and people can travel, our elites are likely to still behave the same way. Because looking forward, one would think that now they will prioritize health, they will prioritize education. But clearly, it is not likely that they are going to do that. I mean, these are the things that can solve our problem in the coming decades, if not century. But if you don't give due attention, look at the North, for example. How are you going to attend to the size, the magnitude of a problem in the North? How are you going to attend to it? You have millions of kids that rely solely on begging and are not likely to change anytime soon.
Okay.
You have powerful brokers that rely on such a system to survive. Exactly. And they are not willing, I mean, in spite of all of the preaching of Lamido Sanusi, they are not willing to yield to any of those. So that's going to be the case. And again, if you cast our mind back to when a former dictator died, I mean, you will expect that will send a powerful signal to our leaders to begin to do things correctly, because they could also be victim of assault.
Okay.
Or they actually did worse. You know, some rumor that the person that came, of course, we don't dwell on rumor, but it's almost true that the person that came after that dictator actually amassed more money than the dictator himself. That is going to be verified, but that may be true. You
Yeah.
know, so the more things change, that you expect that okay, we are supposed to have a new set of people in power, the more they remain the same. So politically, people are still going to be struggling to occupy the most powerful position. They are going to be fighting each other. They are going to be killing people. They are going to be using thugs and so on and so forth. Economically, I am not sure that the Nigerian economy will be able to survive. It will go through a very rough patch for a long time. And the signal of even the price of oil is even an indication that we are in serious trouble.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
if the barrel is selling for $13,
Yeah. Yeah. $13. Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do with that? You are selling for 50 something, you cannot do anything. You are not going
I
to,
I
and
think the barrel is now even more expensive than the content.
and
Yeah.
to add to that, the creditors that you think you could rely on are also
Yes.
struggling. Where are they going to get the fund to give you loan? You know,
Yeah.
which
Where will the salary come from?
where will the
That's
salary
just
come
it. Where is
from?
the salary? Where will
You
the
know,
salary come from?
so economically, we are going to face a tough time, which is why I keep saying that if you need to grow your economy, if you need to develop your system, you cannot do it by relying on loan. You cannot do it by relying on, you know, just revenue from one resources. You must develop your people. Education, health, these are two key things that will take you to any level. You should
Yes.
be able to spend anything that needs to be spent to give your people the level of education that will put them there. You
Yes.
must be able to do anything that will put your health sector, you know, in that space. So
Okay.
politically and economically, it is going to be a serious, serious time, you know, for Nigeria. And as I said, if we survive what is coming, people will position themselves to be able to grab what's left of the country, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think what we are saying, I think we are a little bit, not a little bit, we are still being like, I don't want to use the word pessimistic, I would say that we are being realistic, really.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
without repeating what you guys have said, I personally don't see anything changing, really, because because of what I can see is kind of an attempt at regime preservation, in a further attempt
Mm.
at regime preservation,
Yeah.
not really putting anything in place. Like I mentioned something that there was this report in Punch that stated that the late chief of staff was informed about lack of facilities. In fact,
Mm.
this one is not even a secret. There was a time the wife of the president even cried out that there was
Yeah.
no paracetamol in Aso Rock, no syringe,
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
was hounded down by somebody who is a relative of this same man. I mean, where
Yeah.
she was harassed, the wife of the president was harassed. A video was placed online, and Nigeria had to like go on Twitter to defend the first lady. But now the chicken has come home to roost, as Dr. Uni just he has retreated throughout this particular broadcast. So there is nothing really that is going to change. Rather, what I envisage personally is that some of these leaders will start, they won't allow a repeat of this anymore. They would maybe probably buy ventilators into their government houses, and they will stock up, to really prevent a recurrence. So
Yeah.
that's what I see there. I see nothing changing really, because like you said, but the oil is coming. The oil economy is predicated on oil, on rent seeking,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
sharing of oil without any. In fact, even the way the whole structure is, the states are not viable. They are dependent on oil. With some
Yeah.
exception of few states in the south,
Yeah.
nearly all the states in the north, they can't fund themselves. Somebody said that if
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria were to divide today, the north will be poorer than Chad and some other places, because despite having access to some of these resources, the north is not to be like, I'm not particularly singling out the north for bad leadership, but
Mm.
because they've had access to limitless power, almost limitless power. I mean, some leaders and they live from the north. Most of their leaders, they are elites. They are either they've dominated the civil service, they dominated the political class, they dominated the
Yeah.
military. So if they could
Yeah.
not change the lot of their people, even with the power that they have, then they should be singled out for serious
Yeah.
chastisement. And that's why what the former emir of Kano, why some of us had to support his position. that okay, this thing,
Yeah.
you can't just, it's not sustainable. The Almajiri system
Yeah.
of blackmailing the federal government, oh, don't touch our culture, we can give back to
Yeah.
as many kids as we can, and then but now they
Yeah.
are suffering from that. So at this point, I don't want us to drag further, but what I can advise, and I want us to give each maybe brief 1 minute advice or prescription on what could be done, either to mitigate the situation or to avert the crisis, or by way of just advice, or even for academic purposes, because we know that some of these leaders don't even listen to what what informed opinion really. So
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
can end and close the broadcast. So, but what are your? What do you prescribe? What do you? Yeah.
I think two things, but they are connected. The first is that if it is possible to rejig and recalibrate our leadership selection process,
Okay.
that will be the first thing to getting us in the direction that we need. And how can we do that? Some people are talking of electronic voting. Some people are talking of uh, well, other measures in which inclusion of debate, for example, will be part of the selection process. If you don't participate in debate, you don't get a chance to run for office. Some people are recommending that you expand the political space. I mean, whatever it is that needs to be done must be done to be sure that those that we appoint to do job at the level of the state, that is the federal government of Nigeria, are capable. The second thing is that once you have people that are capable, you must take stock of what you want to take care of. What you want to take care of in terms of the citizen that you want to give education and the citizen that you want to give health. So I would strongly recommend that a national database is essential. Immediately after this, or even as this is going on, we can have a database that saves us a lot of trouble. It saves us
Yeah.
from conducting a census that we spend much money on. It saves us
Yeah.
from having to plunge money into registering people for elections or this or that. Once they just come to the age of voting, you just plug them in, produce
Yeah.
their card, send it to them, or send them a message to come and get their card or whatever. So those are the two things that I think should be prioritized. Leadership selection process, so that we don't have a repeat of what is close to Yaradua case. Even the Buhari case, we don't have that such. We have the best of hands to manage some of these things. And then we have a responsive leader that's able to do things. And then I think that the national database is important. Why that is important is if we have a national database, for example, all this palliative that we are talking about that the federal government is supposed to give to people, it's easy. You know who is working. You know who is not working. You know who is earning money. You know who is not earning money. You know who is, you know who is not, and you can
Yes.
attend to it. Yeah. So yeah, that would be my last. Yeah.
All right. Dr. Oni, what do you have to say? Your
Oh
position, please.
yes. Yeah. I think I also want to go. The way Bode has gone in terms of trying as much as possible to use this occasion to develop a database for the people. If we start from the local government level, and then of course extend this to states. We know some regions, and some states may still, want to be funny with figures, thinking that they could, use that politically. Whatever they achieve with that, it's also in the long run, because with the latest technology that we are, you can't hide away your statistics anymore.
Yeah.
It's gone to the history. If we want to know how if we compare, a place like Kano, to Lagos, with thermal imaging camera, it's easy done. You can easily estimate.
Yeah.
You can easily estimate. You don't have to do the number ahead. But for resource distribution, it is important that we capture our per capita and know how much, the extent of how dense we are in population, and we can quickly use this occasion, when people are at home, to do that. So I think if we have a very rich database, data now is the new oil, we'll be able to make in the decision. Our predictive capacity will be strengthened, and then of course that's we know we have arrived. We can use that to plan for the education sector. We can use that to plan for the health sector. We can use that to plan almost every sphere of the Nigerian states. But without adequate data to guide our actions, I think all playing will be towards the gallery, and I want to that's that. So that would be my submission. Let's take our database capturing very, very serious, and then let's see what we can do with that. And we can start now. It is never too late.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, I agree with you about that, because one of the issues that we're facing now is how to even share some of those palliatives. And then we've seen the structural imbalance in that, and a sort of injustice that some people have already identified also in the way and manner in which the exercise was carried out. Because and again, like you said just now, data is one key thing that we have to prioritize also. I think both Bode and Wale Oni also reiterate that in their point. Yeah, because the thing is, if you don't have the right figures, we can't really plan effectively, and that would lead to. And then again, census is even almost overrated in this era of big data, and in this era of big data and what have you, the 5G generation, the 5th generation of the internet, because you can actually use the teledensity of a place to know how people are, the extent of people who reside in that area. And then a lot of thermal imaging, satellite imaging can really reveal some of these things. So we need to put all this in place. And also the economic aspect also. I think this is the time this is not the time to play politics. Each state should be encouraged, the so-called restructuring should be embarked upon. Because each state, if you are not viable, the state should be merged with another state. The idea of carrying resources from a place to go and finance, even Hajj, finance Jerusalem trip, finance Sharia police in some places, finance things that people don't really benefit, or that will serve specific interest. Even having multiple, having about 500, about 300 senators, more than 400 House of Assembly. We have so many notes of getting money out of the country without, wasting money with every wastage. So do we really need bicameral system? These are things we should be talking about. Do we need a full-time National Assembly? People who just be earning money more than even the medical doctor will ever earn in a lifetime. They will earn that in a year. And then they are even earning more than the President of the United States. So we have also, that is also replicated in all the 36 states and all the about 700 local government with their various councillors and what have you. So these wastages must be plugged if we really want to really get something done. So at this end, guys, I would like to thank you very much for joining this particular broadcast. And then,
thank you too.
I really appreciate Dr. Uni and Wale Fashaki, Bode Fashaki, who joined us from Sweden. Thank you very much for participating, and we hope to also have some of the people. I've been reading some comments online on the platform. Very brilliant comments. I hope to bring in one or two of these people to join the broadcast, maybe at the live broadcast one of these days, so I can have a larger, more. We can benefit from their own insights too. So I would want you guys to stay safe, and I hope to see you guys at our next broadcast and episode. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. From myself and everybody, and I want to say that we appreciate those who have joined us, who've watched this broadcast, and those who have commented, who have actively engaged. So we hope to have you guys in subsequent episodes too. And you can also send your comments that we did not capture. You can send them to inbox. So see you guys next time. Thank you very much.